Dr. Sandeep Kumar, MCH first year resident, Department of Surgical Oncology, IMS BHU. Today's topic is recent advances in the management of hormone receptor positive breast cancer. Worldwide, breast cancer is the most frequently diagnosed cancer in females and is the leading cause of cancer death. That accounts for 25% of cancer cases and 15% of cancer death. Hormonal factors and diet and lifestyle are one of the risk factors for development of breast cancer. Most breast cancers are intimately related to exposure to estrogen and alteration in the estrogen receptor signaling pathway. Estrogen receptor overexpressed in 70% of the invasive breast cancer by amplification of the genes, transcriptional re-regulation, post-transcriptional modification. Estrogen is a steroid hormone that exerts its action through the genomic and non-genomic pathway. In genomic pathway, estrogen receptor after activation binds with the co-regulatory proteins to estrogen response elements of the estrogen responsive gene. This in turn results in the transcription of numerous growth promoting genes, including the progesterone receptors. This happens in hours to days. The second is non-genomic pathway, which happens in seconds to minutes. It results from hormone-dependent activation of the membrane-bound or cytosolic estrogen receptors. These non-nuclear estrogen receptors actions result in rapid phosphorylation and activation of various growth regulatory kinase like EGFRs, IGFR1, SRC, SHC, etc. Now, ductal carcinoma in situ. Estrogen receptors are found in 80% of the ductal carcinoma in situ, most frequently in the non-comedonal lesions. Endocrine therapy reduces the local recurrence after breast conservation therapy, also prevents development of the new primary breast cancer in the contralateral breast. Regarding tamoxifen, there is an old trial, NSABP B24 trial, published in 2011. It randomizes women with breast cancer with excision and radiotherapy with tamoxifen 20 mg daily or a placebo for 5 years. After 5 years, a 32% reduction in the risk of invasive local recurrence, 16% reduction in the risk of DCIS local recurrence, and 32% reduction in the contralateral breast cancer was found. In the subset of ER-positive breast cancer, DCIS, tamoxifen reduces the risk of any breast cancer event by 51%. There is another trial, United Kingdom, Australia, and New Zealand trial. It randomized women to tamoxifen or no tamoxifen and has a median follow-up of 12.7 years. It found that tamoxifen reduces the ipsilateral events, but more significantly, it reduced contralateral events. In subset analysis, the benefit of tamoxifen appeared restricted to patients who did not receive radiotherapy. For aromatase inhibitors, there is one recent trial, NSABP B trial, published in 2016. A total of 3,104 postmenopausal women who are estrogen receptor positive, DCIS, treated with lumpectomy and whole breast radiotherapy, randomized to 5 years of either tamoxifen or to the aromatase inhibitor, that is anastrozole. After 9 years of the follow-up, anastrozole was associated with lower of the breast cancer events. Now, early operable breast cancer. The old trials are EBC TCG overview of the randomized trials of adjuvant tamoxifen. It is a 15th of follow-up from more than 60 trials, including more than 80,000 women. Tamoxifen administered for 5 years resulted in 41% reduction in the annual rate of breast cancer recurrence and a 34% reduction in the annual death rate. The gains achieved are independent of the patient's age or menopausal status. They are achieved with or without use of adjuvant chemotherapy, durable, and they contribute to improve survival through the 15 years of the follow-up. There is one older trial, Atlas trial. It compared the 10 years versus 5 years of the adjuvant tamoxifen. The inference were improvement in overall survival and disease-free survival with the longer duration, that is 10 years of the tamoxifen. It is mostly relevant in premenopausal women who cannot receive extended adjuvant endocrine therapy. Now, aromatase inhibitors in early breast cancer. they inhibit the aromatase enzyme that converts the androgens into estrogens and resulting in profound estrogen depletion. In postmenopausal women, aromatase inhibitors lower the estrogen production by 90% to nearly undetectable level because they have only non-ovarian baseline levels of aromatase activity. They can be used as primary or upfront therapy instead of tamoxifen, or sequential therapy after 2 to 3 years of tamoxifen, or as extended therapy after 5 years of tamoxifen. Use of aromatase inhibitor results in modest improvement in disease-free survival as a result of lower risk of both metastasis and in breast recurrences and colorectal tumor. Another old trial, Breast International Group 198 trial and tamoxifen and exemestane in early breast cancer study, published in 2009. They compared upfront use of aromatase inhibitor with sequential treatment of tamoxifen followed by an aromatase inhibitor. They both demonstrated equal rates of either 5 years of aromatase inhibitor or 2 to 3 years of tamoxifen, followed by 2 to 3 years of an aromatase inhibitor for a total of 5 years of therapy. These randomized trials have shown no important clinical differences between the non-steroidal and steroidal aromatase inhibitor as an adjuvant therapy. This is the one recent trial, data trial, done by Vivian et al., published in Lancet Oncology in 2017. The effect of extended adjuvant aromatase inhibition in hormone receptor positive breast cancer after sequential endocrine therapy of tamoxifen followed by aromatase inhibitor for a 5-year treatment period still need clarification. It is done to assess the different durations of anastrozole therapy after tamoxifen. It is a prospective, randomized, open-label, multi-center phase 3 study done in 79 hospitals of the Netherlands. Postmenopause women with hormone receptor positive early breast cancer with no signs of disease after 2 to 3 years of adjuvant tamoxifen were randomly assigned to either 3 or 6 years of anastrozole treatment in 1:1 ratio. The primary endpoint was disease-free survival starting beyond 3 years of randomization. In this, 1860 patients were eligible and 1660 were disease-free 3 years after the randomization. The 5-year disease-free survival was 83.1% in the 6-year group and 79.4% in the 3-year group. But the longer treatment duration has more adverse effects as compared to the 3 years, including the all-grade arthralgia, myalgia, and osteoporosis. They interpreted as they cannot recommend the use of extended adjuvant aromatase inhibition after 5 years of sequential endocrine therapy in all postmenopausal women with hormone receptor positive breast cancer. There is another trial with accelerated partial breast irradiation and hormone receptor positive breast cancer, published in Cancers 2020 by Soren et al. Earlier studies have demonstrated correlation between the accumulation of tumor-associated macrophages, especially of M2-like phenotype, and increased mortality in advanced breast cancer. So they investigated the prognostic potential of both main macrophage phenotypes in early hormone receptor positive breast cancer. Patients selected were hormone receptor positive, small tumor size, and no metastasis. Tumor tissue macroarrays from the pre-radiotherapy resection sample were double stained with CD68 and CD163 using immunohistochemistry. CD68 positive and CD163 negative cells were considered M1-like macrophages, and CD68 positive and CD163 positive were representative of M2-like macrophages. M1 and M2 macrophage density were analyzed semi-automatically in the stromal and intraepithelial tumor compartment. Low M1 and high M2 density were strongly associated with decreased disease-free survival. Now, combined tumor-associated macrophage phenotype densities were studied after defining a macrophage shift classification, that is M1 shifted and non-shifted. M1 shifted is M1 high and M2 low, and non-shifted is M1 low, M2 low, or M1 high and M2 high. These type of tumors entail a favorable outcome, while M2 shifted tumors, like which have low M1 and high M2, they are associated with extremely reduced disease-free survival and are classified as high risk, and they are probably not suited for accelerated partial breast irradiation. There is another trial that correlates estrogen receptor positive breast cancer with BRCA1 and BRCA2 mutation carrier. It is produced in Cancers 2019 by Michael et al. It is a retrospective cohort study. They analyze the effect of clinicopathologic characteristics on breast cancer prognosis, that is disease-free survival or disease-specific survival, in a hereditary BRCA1 or 2 mutation carriers. Patients with ER positive, hormone receptor positive tumors develop disease recurrences 2.3 times more likely when they are carried BRCA1 or 2 mutation. Hormone receptor positive carriers also have 3.4 times higher risk of death as compared to hormone receptor positive non-carriers due to breast cancer. Prognosis in hormone receptor positive BRCA1-2 mutation carriers was comparable to with that of hormone receptor positive non-carriers. This study demonstrates the ER positivity worsens the breast cancer prognosis in BRCA1-2 mutation carriers, while the prognosis for carriers with hormone receptor negative is significantly better and comparable with that of hormone receptor positive older breast cancer non. These observations indicate BRCA1 and 2 mutation carriers with hormone receptor positive breast cancer represent high risk patients. Now another CALGB trial published in 2013, it includes 70 women 70 years and older, earlier clinical stage and hormone receptor positive. They all received breast conservatory and tamoxifen and were randomized to receive radiotherapy or no radiotherapy. The 10-year risk of local recurrence was 10% after lumpectomy and tamoxifen alone, as compared to 2% for those who were randomized to radiotherapy. But there were no significant difference in the metastasis-free survival or overall survival. There is another recent trial, PRIME2 in 2015. The design was similar as the CALGB, but includes women who are aged 65 years or elder. After 5 years of follow-up, PRIME2 revealed 4% risk of local recurrence rate without RT as compared without radiation therapy as compared to percent in those who randomized to radiation therapy. There was again no difference in the overall survival. These studies suggest that older women with hormone receptor positive, node negative, early breast cancer who are taking tamoxifen have low risk of in-breast recurrence, and they can safely omit RT without compromising the long-term survival. Some current guidelines recommend that postmenopausal women consider an aromatase inhibitor at some point, either as initial therapy or sequential therapy after several years of tamoxifen. Now, duration of adjuvant endocrine therapy. It is an important clinical consideration. Hormone receptor positive breast cancers have long latency period, especially in the setting of adjuvant endocrine treatment. Late recurrences of hormone receptor positive breast cancer after 5 years of treatment outnumber early recurrences. There are various risk factors like stage, high histologic grade, biological features of the tumor. Tumors with higher level of hormone receptor expression and more favorable genomic signatures like lower oncotype, Douglas score, or luminal A features have lower risk for later recurrence. Now, some old trial, Atlas trial, it published in 2013, they showed 10-year tamoxifen reduced the recurrence rate as compared to 5 years of tamoxifen. One recent trial, AMI-17R trial, published in 2016, they randomized women to an additional 5 years of an aromatase inhibitor, that is letrozole, versus placebo after initial 5 years of therapy with aromatase inhibitor plus tamoxifen. This trial showed statistically significant improvement in disease-free survival, but not overall survival. Another trial is NSABP B42 trial, published in again 2016. 5 years of aromatase inhibitor in treatment after initial 5 years of with aromatase inhibitor plus tamoxifen also modestly reduces the recurrence. Lower incidence of second breast cancer in both ipsilateral. These data showed lower incidence of second breast cancer in contralateral breast. The absolute benefit of the extended treatment is greater in higher stage cancer, but in lower stage cancer like stage 1, they have little numeric advantage, but they prevent second breast cancer. Now, ovarian separation as an adjuvant therapy, they have role in addition to tamoxifen or chemotherapy. In addition to tamoxifen or chemotherapy has taken years to clarify due to confounding clinical factors. Ovarian separation leads to improved long-term outcomes for younger women. The two trials, TEX trial and SOFT trials, the both studies included patients with hormone receptor positive early stage breast cancer have documentation of premenopausal status with or without use of chemotherapy. The SOFT study randomized 3,066 women to tamoxifen alone, ovarian suppression plus tamoxifen, or ovarian suppression plus plus exemestane. A cohort of women with high risk are younger women with higher stage who require chemotherapy. In these cases, addition of ovarian suppression reduces recurrence rate as compared to tamoxifen alone. While a cohort of women with low risk, that is more than 40 years of age, node negative, no adjuvant chemotherapy, they have minimal benefit for the ovarian suppression. In both studies, ovarian suppression combined with an aromatase inhibitor further reduces the risk of recurrence as compared to tamoxifen-based ovarian suppression. The different GnRH agonist therapy used for ovarian suppression are goserelin, triptolurine, and leuprolide acetate. Surgical oophorectomy also can be done, but it carries the irreversible side effect of the menopause. Now, adjunctive bisphosphonate therapy and bone health. Bone modifying agents, that is bisphosphonates and denosumab, they mitigate the loss of bone density in women with treatment-induced ovarian failure or on aromatase inhibitor therapy. Adjuvant use of bisphosphonates can reduce the breast cancer recurrence in postmenopausal women. There is a recent trial, early breast cancer trialist collaborative group, adjuvant bisphosphonate treatment in early breast cancer, a meta-analysis of individual patients from randomized trials published in Lancet in 2015. It showed women in the trial 2 to 5 years of bisphosphonate. Overall, the reduction in the recurrence, distant recurrence, and the breast cancer mortality were only of the borderline significant. But in the postmenopausal group, there were significant reduction in the recurrence, distant recurrence, bone recurrence, and breast cancer mortality. The inference is adjuvant bisphosphonate can reduce the rate of breast cancer recurrence in the bone and improve breast cancer survival. But there is definite benefit only in the women who were postmenopausal when the treatment began. The another trial, adjuvant denosumab, that is ABCSG18, it was done by Michael et al. And published in Lancet Oncology in 2019. It randomizes postmenopausal women with early and hormone receptor positive non-metastatic adenocarcinoma of the breast who have completed their initial adjuvant treatment by surgery, radiotherapy, or chemotherapy and receiving adjuvant aromatase inhibitor. The trial centers were in the 1:1 ratio to receive subcutaneous denosumab or matching placebo every 6 months during aromatase inhibitor therapy. The primary endpoint was time to first clinical fracture after randomization. The secondary endpoint was disease-free survival, as defined as time from randomization to first evidence of local or distant metastasis, colorectal breast cancer, secondary carcinoma, or death from any cause. The findings were disease-free survival significantly improved in denosumab group versus the placebo group. In denosumab group, disease-free survival were 89.2% and 80.6% at 5 years and 8 years of follow-up, respectively, compared to 87% and 77% and 5 years, 8 years of placebo group. Effective and safe adjuvant treatment for patients. It is interpreted as effective and safe adjuvant treatment for patients with postmenopausal hormone receptor positive early breast cancer receiving adjuvant aromatase inhibitor. Denosumab reduces the incidence of osteoporotic fracture in postmenopausal women with ER positive breast cancer. Denosumab also reduces the risk of cancer recurrence. These data suggest that either bisphosphonate therapy or denosumab should be considered for some postmenopausal women on aromatase inhibitor therapy. The main aim of therapy is non-curative. The treatment goals are prolongation of life, control of tumor burden, reduction in the cancer-related symptoms or complications, and maintenance of quality of life and function. Patients with endocrine-sensitive tumors, which have minimal symptoms and limited involvement, initially treated with endocrine therapy alone. Initial treatment with using combined chemoendocrine therapy, they have no improvement in survival compared to sequential treatment program. Patients with hormone receptor positive tumors progressing despite the use of endocrine therapy are candidates for chemotherapy. The different endocrine therapies are ovarian suppression or ablation, selective estrogen receptor modulators, aromatase inhibitors, antiestrogens, progestins, and the new agents are CDK4/6 inhibitors, that is ribociclib, palbociclib, and abemaciclib. Tamoxifen in metastatic breast cancer, hormone receptor positive, there is 50% response rate and median duration of response is 12 to 18 months among the treatment patients. In premenopausal women, combined endocrine therapy with the ovarian separation and tamoxifen improves the survival as compared with treatment with either alone. The first indication for the breast cancer recurrence is ovarian or ablation with the initiation of tamoxifen or aromatase inhibitor. While in the postmenopausal women, tamoxifen, aromatase inhibitor, progesterone agent, all can be given as palliation. Aromatase inhibitor are preferred initial agents for women who receive prior tamoxifen treatment in the adjuvant setting. There are various trials. That is a SWAG 0226 trial, last updated in December 2018, suggested that combined anastrozole and fulvestrant improved progression-free survival and overall survival in treatment-naive patients. The patients who received prior tamoxifen in the SWAG and fulvestrant anastrozole combination therapy trials or prior aromatase inhibitor therapy in the study of Falsodex versus exemestane with or without adverse trial, the combination of fulvestrant plus an aromatase inhibitor was not superior to the monotherapy approach. Another Falcon trial done by John Robertson et al. Published in 2016 Lancet, the fulvestrant has superior efficacy and a preferred treatment option for patients with hormone receptor positive, locally advanced or metastatic breast cancer who have not received previous endocrine therapy as compared to anastrozole. Fulvestrant versus another is Paloma 3 trial, that is published in Lancet Oncology 2016 by Massimo et al. It is a multicentral, double-blind, randomized 3 trial. Women included 18 years or older with hormone receptor positive, HER2 negative metastatic breast cancer that has progressed on previous endocrine therapy. The women were stratified by sensitivity to previous hormonal therapy, menopausal status, and presence of visceral metastasis. This has done in 144 centers in 17 countries. Eligibles were anti-menopausal status, ECOG1, measurable disease or bone disease only, and disease relapse or progression after previous endocrine therapy for advanced disease, during treatment or within 12 months of completion of adjuvant therapy. The results were fulvestrant versus plus palbociclib is associated with significant and consistent improvement in progression-free survival compared with fulvestrant plus placebo, irrespective of the degree of endocrine resistance. The combination could be considered a therapeutic option for patients with recurrent hormone receptor positive, HER2 negative metastatic breast cancer that has progressed on the previous endocrine therapy. Another trial, Mona Lisa 2 trial, done by Joyce and published in Breast Cancer Research and Treatment in 2018. They randomized ribociclib plus letrozole versus placebo. They showed ribociclib plus letrozole improved progression-free survival as compared to letrozole alone, and they can be used as a first-line treatment in post-menopausal women with hormone receptor positive, HER2 negative advanced breast. Another Mona Lisa 3 trial done by Dennis et al. And published in Journal of Clinical Oncology in 2018. They randomized 484 post-menopausal women and randomly assigned to ribociclib plus fulvestrant and versus placebo and plus fulvestrant in 2:1 ratio. The primary endpoint were progression-free survival, secondary endpoint were overall survival, overall response rate, and safety. Results were median progression-free survival significantly improved with ribociclib plus fulvestrant group, that is 20.5 months versus 12.8 months. Consistent effects were observed in patients who were in treatment naive in advanced setting, as well as in patients who had received up to 1 line of prior endocrine therapy. Overall response rate is 40.9% for ribociclib plus fulvestrant arm versus 28.7% for placebo versus plus fulvestrant arm. They concluded that ribociclib plus fulvestrant might represent a new first or second line treatment option in hormone receptor positive, HER2 negative advanced breast cancer. Another Mona Lisa 3 trial done by Debu Tripathi et al. And published in Lancet in 2018. They aimed to assess the efficacy and safety of ribociclib plus endocrine therapy in premenopausal women with advanced hormone receptor positive cancer. It is a phase 3 randomized double-blind placebo-controlled trial done in 188 centers in 30 countries. Eligible patients were premenopausal women aged 18 years, 59 years, having histologically and cytologically confirmed hormone receptor positive HER2 advanced breast cancer. Disease were measured as RECIST 1.1 criteria or at least one predominantly lytic bone lesion or not, and have not received previous treatment with CD46 inhibitor. Endocrine therapy and chemotherapy, adjuvant or neoadjuvant, were permitted. They were randomly assigned in 1:1 group on oral ribociclib or matching placebo with either oral tamoxifen or a non-steroidal aromatase inhibitor. Efficacy analysis by intention to treat. The primary endpoint is progression-free survival by assessed by investigator. The results were ribociclib plus endocrine therapy improved progression-free survival as compared to placebo plus endocrine therapy and have a manageable safety profile in patients with premenopausal, hormone receptor positive, negative advanced breast cancer. Another Monarch 2 trial done by George et al. Published in Journal of Clinical Oncology 2016. They compared the efficacy safety of abemaciclib, a CDK4/6 inhibitor, plus fulvestrant with fulvestrant alone. It is a double-blind phase 3 study. Patients included were hormone receptor positive, HER2 advanced breast cancer who had progressed while receiving neoadjuvant or adjuvant endocrine therapy. 12 months end of adjuvant endocrine therapy or while receiving first-line endocrine therapy for metastatic disease. Abemaciclib at 150 mg twice daily plus fulvestrant was effective, improving overall rate of recurrence and demonstrated a tolerable safety in advanced breast cancer who progressed while receiving the endocrine therapy. Another Monarch 3 trial by Matthew et al. In 2017. It is a double-blind randomized phase 3 study of abemaciclib or placebo plus a non-aromatase inhibitor in postmenopausal group with hormone receptor positive, HER2 negative advanced breast cancer who had no prior systemic therapy in the advanced setting. They received abemaciclib or placebo plus either 1 mg anastrozole or 2.5 mg letrozole daily. The primary endpoints were progression survival and secondary endpoints were response evaluation and safety. The results were median progression-free survival is significantly prolonged in abemaciclib arm. That the median then reached in 14.7%. In abemaciclib arm, the diarrhea is the most frequent adverse effect, but it is mainly grade 1. The conclusion were abemaciclib plus a non-steroidal aromatase inhibitor is effective as initial therapy, significantly improving the progression-free survival and objective response rate, and demonstrating a tolerable safety profile in postmenopausal women with hormone receptor positive, HER2 negative advanced breast cancer. Now, another Bailey 3 trial. It compares the buparlisib plus fulvestrant. Buparlisib is a PIK3 inhibitor. Activation of PIK3, AKT or mTOR pathway occurs frequently in breast cancer. That is endocrine therapy. mTOR inhibitors, which are approved in breast cancer, effectively inhibits the cell growth and proliferation, but elicit AKT phosphorylation via feedback activation pathway, potentially leading to a resistance to mTOR inhibitor. This is a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled, multi-center phase 3 study recruited from 200 centers in 22 countries. They mainly recruited postmenopausal women with histologically, cytologically confirmed hormone receptor positive, HER2 negative, locally advanced or metastatic breast cancer who has relapsed on or after endocrine therapy and or mTOR inhibitors. Eligible patients were assigned in 2:1 group to receive oral buparlisib or matching placebo plus intramuscular fulvestrant. The primary endpoint were progression-free survival. There were many serious adverse events in the buparlisib group with some death. The results showed the profile of buparlisib and fulvestrant does not support its further development in this setting. Nonetheless, the efficacy of buparlisib supports the rationale for the use of PIK3 inhibitors plus endocrine therapy in patients with PIK3CA mutation. Now, the ASCO guidelines. It is published in 2018. An American Society of Clinical Oncology update. Many women with node-negative breast cancer are potential candidates for and may be offered extended aromatase inhibitor for up to total of 10 years adjuvant endocrine treatment based on consideration of recurrence risk using established prognostic factors. However, as recurrence risk is lower, the benefits are likely narrower for such patients. Women with low-risk node-negative tumors should not be routinely offered extended therapy. Women with node-positive breast cancer should be offered extended aromatase therapy for up to 10 years of adjuvant endocrine treatment. women who receive extended adjuvant endocrine therapy should receive no more than 10 years of total treatment. As prevention of secondary or contralateral breast cancer is a major benefit of extended initial therapy, the risk of second breast cancer based on previous therapy should inform the decision to pursue the extended treatment. Extended therapy carries ongoing risks and side effects, which should be weighed against the potential absolute benefit of longer treatment in a shared decision-making process between the clinical team and the patient. The qualifying statement is, to date, none of the studies have shown improvement in overall survival with longer duration aromatase inhibitor therapy. As such, the recommendations on extended adjuvant aromatase inhibitor therapy are based on benefits that include prevention of distant recurrence and prevention of second breast cancer. To sum up, this is the NCCN guideline, recent NCCN guideline. This shows adjuvant endocrine therapy in early breast cancer. For premenopausal women at diagnosis, we can use tamoxifen for 5 years or aromatase inhibitor for 5 years with ovarian suppression or ablation. These are the category 1 recommendations. After that, patient can be menopausal or can be premenopausal or postmenopausal. If the patient becomes postmenopausal, then aromatase inhibitor for 5 years or tamoxifen for additional 5 years to complete 10 years of the 10 years of the duration. If patients were still be premenopausal, then we can consider tamoxifen additional 5 years to complete 10 years, or we can stop the further therapy. In postmenopausal women which are at diagnosis, we can have aromatase inhibitor for 5 years, category 1 recommendation, or aromatase inhibitor for 2 to 3 years, or tamoxifen for 2 to 3 years. In all, which are followed by aromatase inhibitor for 2 to 3 years, plus followed by tamoxifen for 2 to 3 years to complete 5 years of the endocrine therapy, or tamoxifen for 2 to 3 years, then aromatase inhibitor to complete the 5 years of endocrine therapy. In another group of postmenopausal women, we can give tamoxifen for 4.5 to 6 years, followed by aromatase inhibitor for 5 years, or consider tamoxifen for another 10 years. Another group, the women who have contraindication to aromatase inhibitor, who declines aromatase inhibitor, or who are intolerant of aromatase inhibitors, tamoxifen for 5 years can be given. That is a category 1 recommendation. This is the table which I make in postmenopausal women. That is Mona Lisa 2 trial, Mona Lisa 3 trial, Monarch 3 trial, and Ballet 3 trial. The drugs used and the inference. In all Mona Lisa 2, 3, and Monarch 3 trial, the ribociclib plus letrozole improved the progression-free survival. Mona Lisa 3 also progression-free survival improved with ribociclib plus fulvestrant. In Monarch 3 trial, also abemaciclib plus non-steroidal aromatase inhibitor improves the progression-free survival. But in Ballet 3 trial, the oral bupralisib plus fulvestrant does not support its further development. In premenopausal group, the Paloma 3 trial and Mona Lisa 7 trial, the both shows improvement in progression-free survival. This is the take-home message. In premenopausal women, if patient has not taken prior treatment, this is the take-home message for premenopausal women or for metastatic breast cancer. If they didn't have any prior treatment, the first line should be tamoxifen or aromatase inhibitor, or fulvestrant or aromatase inhibitor plus CDK4/6 inhibitor. Second line is plus CDK4/6 inhibitor or aromatase inhibitor plus everolimus. If the patient has received adjuvant tamoxifen, the first line should be aromatase inhibitor or fulvestrant or aromatase inhibitor plus CDK4/6. Second line should be the fulvestrant plus CDK4/6 inhibitor or aromatase inhibitor plus everolimus. If the patient has received aromatase inhibitor earlier, then the first line should be the first line in the late relapse should be the aromatase inhibitor or fulvestrant or aromatase inhibitor plus CDK4/6. For early relapse, we can use fulvestrant plus CDK4/6 inhibitor. Second line should be the fulvestrant plus CDK4/6 or aromatase inhibitor plus everolimus. In postmenopausal women, the first line drugs should be tamoxifen and or aromatase inhibitor for a total duration of 5 years, or ribociclib plus letrozole. The second line drugs should be ribociclib plus fulvestrant.
Thank you, Sandeep. Very exhaustive review of endocrine therapies. But unfortunately, we didn't hear any advances on radiotherapy and surgery? Would you like to add? Are there any advances in radiotherapy techniques and in surgical techniques? Or do these techniques modify if you have a estrogen receptor positive tumors?
One trial was accelerated partial radioactive ABPI technique, in which if the patients were hormone receptor positive, and they showed that EAM, the macrophages, if they are in M1, high M1 and low M2 group, then high and low M2 group, they are in the high risk group. So they in that group, high risk group, so the high risk group, so the adjuvant radiotherapy cannot be omitted, while in the low risk group, adjuvant radiotherapy can be omitted.
But this is not in the practice. So what is the role of accelerated partial breast radiation in ER positive tumors?
If a ER positive tumor, we consider for breast conservation therapy, we have to add accelerated ABPI for BCS plus ABPI for BCS, breast conservation therapy. So if patients
actually, this is the subset of patient who actually benefits from ABPI compared to triple negative or HER2 enriched tumors,
okay,
where the whole breast radiation can be avoided because these are good prognostic tumors. What about surgery? There are not many recent advances. Okay, it is open for discussion, and as we progress, we will take questions and discuss. So, Mohan, you want to add something?
Just a little point about the ER positive cancer and adjuvant radiotherapy. We have a study called a primetime study, which is using IHC plus C scoring to categorize low risk patients. Those patients can safely avoid radiotherapy. So this can be done based on the core biopsy sample, basically the easy way of looking at it, the grade 1, grade 2, ER positive, HER2 negative, node negative T1 cancers complete size, those and low Ki67, those are the ones come up with the low score. So if you don't want to do a complicated IHC 4C, this is in the 60 plus 65 plus age group.
Basically, in the early breast cancer, they are trying to reduce or de-escalate the tumor, the treatment as much as possible, and avoid unnecessary treatments wherever it is possible. So that is probably what they are looking for.
Yes. So this is for the 665, again, you have to be careful extrapolating that age to India, because that is based on the fact that the average lifespan of a woman in UK is 80. I'm sure India is 80. What moment?
68.
So 68. So it is probably, for India, it will probably be 55 plus, to be honest. What is your life chance of getting a recurrence? And it's based off how long you're expected to live, not just an age. Can I just say, very comprehensive presentation. I missed a little bit because my internet is playing up for some reason today. Was there anything, did I miss anything about androgen receptors?
No, this was basically on estrogen receptor positive tumors.
That's fine.
So he has been focusing on ER positive tumors. But yes, estrogen positive tumors can be androgen receptor positive, and there are trials which are now looking at dual blockade of androgen as well as estrogen receptors. Though androgen receptors are more plays a bigger role in a triple negative breast cancers, but they are also being looked at in this subset.
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. It's something, I think that is a topic which will take off big time from what it has been seen in the prostate cancer group. I think that is something to look forward to. For is going to be the next. high field area that people will be starting to look at.
But the problem that we are facing is that most of the lab does not have a androgen receptor ISC standardized.
Yes.
And this is one problem that we are facing, that we are not getting a very good reporting on androgen receptors.
Yeah. So for the trainees, a little bit of a background, a little bit of a story to begin with. Do you know how the world came to know about the possible link between hormone receptors or hormones basically and breast cancer? Does anybody know the history of it? It's a little fascinating piece of history. Anyone? So the story is that there was a Scottish surgeon called George Beatson, and in fact the Glasgow Cancer Unit is named after him. He actually did a study where he cut off the ovaries in lambs where he stimulated breast cancer, and they regressed. So he did oophorectomy on patients with breast cancer, and he published that. That was the start when anybody thought there was a link between estrogen and breast cancer. And then that sort of did not take anything further till tamoxifen came along. And tamoxifen was not a medication which was actually invented for breast cancer use. It was used for rheumatoid arthritis. And it was first found in a lab probably less than 10 miles from in just outskirts of Manchester. And it was then used for breast cancer. The first worldwide trial was done at Christie at Manchester, and there's a plaque there remembering it. And this was in the 70s. And after that, people lost interest in it because not everyone benefited from tamoxifen. That was because not everyone had the opportunity to test ERPR status. And obviously, the 30% ERPR status negative cancers were not benefiting from it. So it sort of went away in the background and only came back in the 90s when people started testing the ERPR status more regularly. But even then in the late 90s, before the ATAC trial came in, the testing for ERPR status, even in UK, was very patchy.
Yeah.
So a lot of these cancers, when you go and look at who had the cancers in the 90s, never had their ERPR status tested. So that's how it started, and it's a little simple pill, but it's a very powerful treatment for breast cancer.
Yeah, and another area that is now opening up, Sumohan, I think, is ER positive, BRCA positive tumors.
Yes.
Because
yes.
It has been seen that of the BRCA positive tumors, almost 30 to 50% are also ER receptor positive.
Especially BRCA2s.
BRCA2s. And this is now opening up a new chapter, that how to deal with BRCA positive, ER positive tumors. Should these be offered a breast conservation, or should these be offered a bilateral mastectomies?
If you look at the POSH study, then it opens up lots of questions.
Yeah, because in ER positive, BRCA positive, the local recurrence rates are much higher, and contralateral breast cancer rates are also higher than those which are BRCA negative. So it almost doubles the local recurrence as well as the contralateral breast cancer recurrence rates. The data is still patchy because there are not many studies that has looked at hormone receptors, and even the meta-analysis. Yeah, most of the people had been looking at triple negative versus receptor positive, and they have actually not looked at HER2 negative versus HER2 positive. People actually have not looked at estrogen receptor separately and what the effect is going to be. But I think one of the interesting chapter that's going to unfold in the days to come is BRCA positive, ER positive tumor. Yeah, Navneet.
Yeah, sir. Even after means surgical excision, means even after oophorectomy, should we continue with tamoxifen, or if, directly after oophorectomy we have to switch over to aromatase inhibitors?
It is actually aromatase inhibitors, because once you take out or ablate the ovaries, the only source of estrogen left in the body is the extra ovarian production, which is through the aromatase. So if you knock out the ovary, then this has to be combined with aromatase inhibition.
In the NCCN trial, it was written plus minus tamoxifen means.
Yes, it says both, because aromatase inhibitor is something which is not very well tolerated by many people. So those who do not tolerate aromatase inhibitors, or there is a reason because of which you cannot give aromatase inhibitors, they can be started on tamoxifen.
So ideally, we must start with aromatase inhibitors directly after the ovarian ablation.
Ideally.
Sir, if a premenopausal female after like 2 years of tamoxifen therapy develops bleeding, what should be the ideal treatment and for how many years? Second question, should endometrial thickness be the guideline or the clinical symptoms for tamoxifen treatment?
Endometrial thickness will develop in almost all women who are undergoing the estrogen replacement therapies. Tamoxifen therapies. Now, if a person, the first thing you have to do is do an ultrasound. Transvaginal ultrasound is very good. Measure the endometrial thickness, and if required, you can do a check DNC to see the endometrium.
What should be the maximum endocrine thickness when we should stop this tamoxifen, even if the patient is not bleeding?
We don't stop tamoxifen.
Okay.
There are other alternatives available. Like you can just put in a intrauterine device, which can counter your increase in thickness. So you can even use an IUCD to reduce your endometrial thickness. So it is.
That means even if she is bleeding, we should not stop tamoxifen and switch on to aromatase inhibitors. We should continue with tamoxifen.
You should do a endometrial curettage to rule out any other pathology, and if it is only the endometrial proliferation, then you can think in terms of introducing an IUCD, or if patient is postmenopausal, completed the family, you can think in terms of doing a hysterectomy. We have a lot of premenopausal women which we manage with IUCDs. 2 to 3 years of IUCD, usually the endometrial thickness starts decreasing.
Yeah, this is regarding postmenopausal, locally advanced or metastatic women with hormone receptor positive disease. I just wanted to ask, now that we have an armamentarium of molecules for treatment like fulvestrant or mTOR inhibitors or CDK4 inhibitors, so when we start dual agents, say for example AI plus either fulvestrant or like that, so what are the factors we consider before we plan the treatment? What are the whether to start mTOR inhibitors upfront or CDK4 inhibitors? So what are the factors which are taken into consideration?
Upfront.
Manoj,
yeah.
Just 1 minute. She is Dr. Baisali Jhamre.
Yeah.
She is senior consultant at Max Baisali.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Rudra.
So you want to answer her, Rudra?
No. I'm not a breast surgeon. I'm just.
Okay. I am also not a breast surgeon, but basically the first line, there was a slide that Sandeep showed that very clearly said that starting 2 aromatase inhibitors or 2 endocrine treatments, at present there is no evidence that it is better than a single treatment. So right now the recommendation is to start with 1.
Okay.
Either tamoxifen or aromatase inhibitor.
Okay.
And both doesn't work together.
Both doesn't work together, but fulvestrant plus letrozole can be taken.
Yeah, that is but that is in the metastatic setting.
More, she is asking about metastatic setting.
I'm asking about metastatic.
Oh, sorry, I missed the question.
She's asking about metastatic setting. So you can start with 1. You can start with aromatase inhibitor.
Okay.
And if you feel that there is no response, or the response is not adequate, you can think in terms of adding a second one.
Does the metastatic load has anything to do with the addition of the single or double agents?
Not that I know of, because so far
no. So it depends on where the metastasis is more than the load. If it is a visceral metastasis, then it becomes a bit of a problem. Bony metastasis, the hormone therapy works better, whatever the load. but visceral metastasis does better with chemotherapy, unless the
That's
patient
correct.
has.
Yeah, right.
So, so if you want to avoid visceral crisis, which is what will affect the patient, that is where you have to be careful, because the hormone treatment, whichever you do it, fulvestrant or whatever, then it doesn't do that well. The only cases is where the patient cannot tolerate chemotherapy, or the chemotherapy has failed, or chemotherapy has worked. You can maintain them on hormone treatment.
Okay.
But visceral crisis is what the problem is. If you have a lung metastasis which is leading to pleural effusions and things, then obviously you know that hormone treatment alone is not going to help the patient.
Sir, suppose we have operated a case of BCS. Patient has received adjuvant chemo and RT, and patient is on hormonal treatment. Sir, after 2 years, patient get the recurrence on the same breast, but this time ER/PR negative, HER2 positive. So shall we continue the tamoxifen?
So
You are talking of not a recurrence. Yeah, so Mohan,
this is a new cancer.
This is a new cancer.
This is a new cancer.
See, whenever you are looking at the ipsilateral breast recurrence, which you call, they are classified into 3 categories. One is that the tumors which occurs within the radiation field, they are called true recurrences. Then there is a group called near miss. These are the tumors which arise around the border of the area which is radiated, and then there are tumors which arise in different quadrants. They are treated as a second primaries, and they are not treated as a recurrences.
No.
So only
Sir,
so true recurrence. See, you don't understand, Ajay. The recurrence is only when it occurs in the operative field and the radiation field. Anything that occurs after that, outside this, is not considered as a true recurrence. Even if they have the same receptor status, it will still be considered as a second primary. There is no doubt. You better go back to DeVita. DeVita has very clearly defined what is a recurrence, what is a near miss, and what is a second primary in breast.
Are you regularly giving bisphosphonates with aromatase inhibitors in adjuvant setting?
So there is a new protocol now. So bisphosphonates, either they get DEXA scans, and if they have osteoporosis, they get it anyway. But there is a new, and I can send you the exact protocol. Basically, patients who need chemotherapy in the high-risk groups, they are being offered bisphosphonates, intravenous bisphosphonates, so not oral bisphosphonates. And there is good data to show that that is beneficial. But then it has a few problems, because you need to make sure the patient's dental work is fine, they can tolerate it. So not everyone can tolerate it. And it does lead to osteonecrosis and things like that. So you have to be careful who you give it to and whether they can tolerate it. But there's a subgroup of patients who will benefit from, and basically you can work it out. The high risk group, the ones which need chemotherapy.
What's the intention of giving it? Whether it's a bone health or not?
So the intention of giving it is to reduce cancer recurrence in those settings. So there are various theories of how it works. It's absolutely fascinating how it has come, and there is good studies to show that it works. We can share the things with it. But basically, one of the theory, and this is not being fully proven, is one of the reasons you can get bone metastasis is that if the bone is empty, so it's got osteoporosis, osteopenia, then you get more chances of cancer growing there because there's no pressure. So if you pack the bones with good quality bone tissue, then there is no space for it. That's one of the theories. There are several similar theories on a molecular level as well. It works. So it does work. The method is debatable. There are a few things around it. For cancer, I can share the protocol. This is on who we do.
Yeah, Sandeep has also presented the trial, which clearly
Yeah.
shows that
Right.
addition of
Results in
aromatase
the recurrence.
inhibitors, yeah, it
Yeah.
decreases the recurrence. So
The
initially, when it
recurrence.
was given for bone health, but now it has been shown that the aromatase inhibitors with bisphosphonates actually improves the prevents the local recurrences.
This is in relation to the current situation, the lockdown situation. I have a lady who is 52 years old and she has locally advanced disease. She has T4B N2 disease. She is postmenopausal and ERPR positive. I have done her PET scan. PET scan doesn't show any distant disease. So in this situation, should I send her for a neoadjuvant chemotherapy, or should I ask them to go ahead with neoadjuvant hormonal therapy?
Vaishali, I'll suggest neoadjuvant hormone because chemotherapy is not safe during the times of COVID. Because if the neutropenia occurs, the chances of the patient getting infected is very high. So, in fact, if you are going to go for neoadjuvant therapy, go for neoadjuvant hormone therapy. That is safest for the patient.
Okay.
Yeah, Rashmi.
Yep.
Sumon, any comments as per European guidelines?
Risk of endometrial cancer, women is taking tamoxifen in premenopausal versus
Your audio is not very clear, Rashmi. Can you repeat?
what is the risk of endometrial cancer in a woman taking tamoxifen in premenopausal versus postmenopausal?
Tamoxifen in premenopausal versus postmenopausal.
Endometrial cancer risk.
Endometrial cancer risk. In patients who are taking tamoxifen, the endometrial cancer risk is always higher in the postmenopausal women, not in the premenopausal women. But this cancer risk is actually negligible. It is not a very high cancer risk. That's why, to the earlier question of Darpan, we said that the first thing you should do is do a check DNC, rule out endometrial carcinoma, and if it is only endometrial proliferation, then manage accordingly. So the same thing applies here. The risk of endometrial cancer is very low. If you look at the ATLAS trial or the ATTACK trial, which are first published in 1984 and have 20-25-year follow-ups now, very little incidence of endometrial cancer there. Not something that you should be afraid of.
That's why it's what's your experience? Have you seen any endometrial cancer in patients taking tamoxifen?
I have not seen any so far because we have a lot of patients who have completed 10 years of tamoxifen, and so far we have not come across. We do come across endometrial hyperplasia, bleeding, and all sort of other complications which are managed. There are women who actually require cystectomy as well. So all kind of benign complications we do see, but we don't see I have not seen the endometrial carcinoma in my time in a woman with breast cancer.
Is there any role of mastectomy in a solid skeletal mets?
There are some retrospective data, especially from the analysis of the SEER database, that in patient with metastasis, if one does take out the primary, the survival is better. But unfortunately, the prospective data does not support it. And in fact, it has been seen that if a primary is tackled with, the chances of metastasis to other organs increases. The exact mechanism, we don't know. Dr. Badwe had been working on, and he says that tumor oxygenation plays a very important role, that when you do a mastectomy, there is a hypoxia of the tumor, which leads to increased metastasis. There are a number of hypotheses which has been given, but all of them shows that if you take out the primary tumor, the metastatic spread in a metastatic case is faster. But the retrospective SEER data does not support it. So this is something which is still not answered in a randomized control trials. There are a lot of retrospective data, And all the retrospective data is usually has a selection bias, so we should not rely upon that data. So the indication of mastectomy in a metastatic disease is bleeding and fungation, and whatever is the indication of mastectomy in a metastatic tumor, not for therapeutic purposes.
Yeah, Dr. Bhavna here, sir.
Hi.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, this is regarding a metastatic disease. Take primary. There is only one data of a Turkish trial which shows 9 months of survival. Rest of the other trials, they are not showing any kind of a survival benefit. So generally, we are not offering a mastectomy in a metastatic patient.
True. That's what I said.
Yeah,
that,
yes, yes, that-
retrospectively, the initial the question started from the SEER database analysis, which showed some benefit of mastectomy in metastatic. But the prospective data, when it started coming, that showed no benefit.
Correct. True. Agree. Thank you, sir.